Before the release, 2017, believe it or not, Apex essentially started out as a game called Survival, where pilots and titans would fight it out to be the last man standing, which is exactly like a battle royale game. The game started out with 24 pilots going into a dropship, where they would then form teams of 3 by running and entering the same pods as each other. You can see how much the game has changed over time. The prototype map that Survival was played on was called Real Big Map. This was quite different to Kings Canyon, obviously, with there being a lot more empty space for the titans to run around. A few months after this, in October 2017, we saw the first ever versions of Gibraltar, Bloodhound, and Wraith. Only a month later, using these new champions, the first ever game had been playtested on the map that we now know as Kings Canyon. Eventually, of course, the element of Titans was removed. They tried to keep them in to stay true to the Titanfall series, but it didn't really suit it and it wasn't working out, and they came to the conclusion to get rid of them completely. Over time, as the company spent more time on developing the game, the name was changed from Survival to Apex Predator, as well as Kings Canyon being more like the Kings Canyon that we know today. After a few alpha tests and a private event in LA, Apex Predator grew into the game we now know and love, Apex Legends, being released on the 4th of February 2019.
Good luck, brothers.
Welcome to Evolution Curios. My name is Fiber, and today we're going through the evolution of Apex Legends.
This is where it ends.
Fourth of February 2019, Season 0 of Apex Legends. Respawn Entertainment releases their own Battle Royale game in order to compete with other huge titles such as Fortnite, PUBG, and H1Z1. Season 0 of Apex was the bare bones version of Apex. It was a more simple and relaxed game back in the day. One of the most obvious things that comes to mind when thinking back to Season 0 is how easy the game was because everyone was trash. Including me, but that's besides the point. Anyways, obviously when Apex first released, everyone was getting accustomed to the game. The aim and movement was very sloppy, but if you had good knowledge of FPS games prior to Apex, it was fairly easy to get high frags. Depends what you land with. I mean, if you got the R309 or R99, I said R309. I mean the R301 out of a chest, you've won the game. Those guns were so good with like 0 recoil. Oh my god, it was amazing. Now that I think about it, Apex back then versus Apex now is kind of contrasting. Back then everyone was a noob. Each fight was fair, I guess. Now everyone turns into a bloody shroud when you shoot at them. It's insane. It's insane. Initially, the game released with these characters we call Legends. Legends are playable characters in it. Legends are playable characters in Apex Legends. Each legend is a unique character with their own backstory, ability, and playstyle. Season 0's legends consisted of Bloodhound, Gibraltar, Lifeline, Pathfinder, Wraith, Bangalore, Caustic, and Mirage. Wraith arguably being the best out of the lot. Just saying. We all know the game released with the Kings Canyon map. In my opinion, probably the best map that they've released. I mean, we had Bunker, Cascades, Bridges, Skull Town. Remember Skull Town? I don't even know why they took it out. It was a cool place to land at, I guess. Nothing significant happened in Season 0 of Apex other than the UI being slightly different. Although Season 0 was a different experience compared to what we have now in Apex. I mean, as I said before, Apex used to be a more chill and relaxed game. If you began playing Apex during Season 0, comment 0 in the comment section right now. Let us know you're an OG player.
New season. Let's go.
24 hours after riding.
March 19th, 2019, first official season of Apex is released. Season 1 of Apex introduced a new playable character known as Octane. He's a high-speed offensive legend who has a lot of mobility. Although he wasn't an S-tier character, he was still extremely fun to use and play around with, especially at the start when everyone was still pretty bad. When having him on the team, you know you're going to be aggressive. All of his abilities complement an aggressive playstyle, from his stim shot to his launchpad ultimate. You know what, now that I think about it, you could use those for the exact opposite as well. I mean, it depends on your playstyle. Receiving a new champ was great, but Season 1 sadly brought around a nerf to the Wingman, reducing the rate of fire and increasing the hipfire spread, which made the hipfire a lot worse. Nevertheless, the very first battle pass was also introduced in Season 1. It brought a large number of cosmetic items to those who purchased the battle pass and played the game a lot. Other than that, Season 1 was a fairly quiet season. Not many changes took place as they were still developing the game and finding out what to do with it. July 2nd, 2019, Season 2 of Apex is released. Compared to Season 0 and Season 1, Season 2 was a much bigger season. A lot of changes actually took place. For starters, the Kings Canyon map had gotten its first big map change, as well as new roaming alien wildlife such as leviathans and flyers being attracted to the island, destroying parts of the map, rendering it unrecognizable. It was in Season 2 that Wattson was released. She's a defensive character with a much slower playstyle. Let's say you land somewhere really populated and manage to get her abilities down inside a building. In theory, you should have the advantage in gunfights, and it should be easier to farm kills and get higher frags, as soon as they enter the building, obviously. It was also around this time where the skill level in Apex was slowly but surely improving, so the game wasn't as easy as it was when the game first released. Players were gradually getting accustomed to the game now. Each game was getting more and more sweaty. Which leads me on to my next point about one of the biggest additions into Season 2, which was Ranked Series 1. This was extremely well received, as everyone was begging for Ranked in Apex before Season 2 even came out. This also created a lot more fair lobbies, as people who wanted to play the game out, grind it, they would normally play Ranked, whereas people who are more general players just stayed in public lobbies. It created a more fun environment for everyone. October 1st, 2019, Season 3 of Apex. The most notable change of Apex Season 3 was obviously World's Edge, the brand new map that was introduced. It was a kind of love-hate relationship with World's Edge, because people missed Kings Canyon, and World's Edge was a fairly different kind of map. Personally, I didn't really mind it, but I did prefer Kings Canyon over World's Edge. Maybe it was just because of the nostalgic feeling. Crypto was the legend released in Season 3, and when he was first introduced in Season 3, he was kinda trash. Obviously, since then he has seen a few buffs to make him more usable in the game. His drone got buffed as well, so he's a much better legend overall. One of the most annoying things added in Season 3 was the addition of the charged rifle. This was basically a noob's best friend. It was a very strong gun, and as long as you could kind of aim with it, you are pretty much guaranteed a kill. It would spray them down and take their health so quickly. It's almost funny how unbalanced that gun was. It was in Season 3 where even the public matches began to feel a lot sweatier. Since the game has been out for a while now, even the more casual players were improving. February 4th, 2020, Season 4 of Apex. This season saw the introduction of the brand new character Revenant. Just like most characters, he wasn't that good to begin with. I mean, he was a decent character to play and pretty fun, but the legend himself with his abilities, especially his ultimate, wasn't very good when he was first introduced. Additionally, in Season 4, we had a pretty big map update, introducing the Hammond Robotics World Harvester. This was actually a pretty big area with some decent choke points, and because of the World Harvester, Capital City got split into two fragments, Frag East and Frag West. I think they did this because Capital City was the largest point of interest at the time. This way, the players will have an incentive to drop in different zones and spread out across the map. We also saw a brand new sniper rifle added in Season 4, the Sentinel, which was actually a very balanced gun, and still balanced gun. It wasn't too strong, and it wasn't too weak either. It was pretty much perfect. Respawn released a new ranking system with the addition of the Master Tier. Because of this, there are a lot less Apex Predators. Talking about ranked, there was a ranked reset midway through Season 4. The map was changed back to Kings Canyon, which probably made a few players happy. May 13th, 2020, Season 5 of Apex. Lobo was introduced as the 13th legend to enter the game. She's a support legend specializing in providing her squad with the highest quality loot. Her ability to scout out epic and legendary items is very useful at the start when landing. However, in fights, if the player's not skilled enough with guns, she's pretty much useless, with the only ability to escape or engage with her jump drive bracelet. With the introduction of Loba, she brought down the entire facility below Skulltown and ended up bringing quite a few changes to the map. Skulltown and Thunderdome were completely removed now and replaced with an excavation site called Salvage. In addition to the new points of interest, charge towers were now scattered around the map, granting players full ultimate charge to any legend standing on the platform, including enemies. So when using it, you had to watch out for people around you, just in case. Ranked was also back with Series 4, with all the same rules, but with the addition of Reconnect. If you disconnected from a game, players were still able to join back if the game is still going on or if you and your squad are still alive. This aided various players with connection issues, giving them still a possibility to win. Finally, we received the Mastiff in the world loot pool, receiving a few nerfs in order to make the gun balanced, but that's fair, the gun was kinda broken. Personally, it's still my favorite shotgun, and I'll definitely pick up anytime I come across it. August 18th, 2020, Season 6 of Apex. The introduction of Season 6 brought in the new Apex legend, Rampart. Her abilities included amped cover, modded louder, and emplaced minigun. She's a defensive legend, able to create multiple heavily armored protective barriers. With Season 6, a new armor meta was introduced into the game. Originally, players would scavenge for armor, which spawned on the ground in certain locations. Evo armor was a variant which allowed players to level the rarity of the armor, determined through the damage dealt to other players. This was a high risk but high reward item, creating more aggressive playstyles in order to have the best rarity armor in the game, meaning more damage early on means you have probably the best armor early on. Another interesting change is that players spawn with a level 0 Evo armor, allowing players to level up the rarity right from the drop, giving them a greater opportunity to survive. Holo sprays were also introduced, allowing players to throw down legend specific calling cards to taunt enemies or threaten opponents. We all know the RNG gods aren't always in our favour when it comes to scavenging for loot. With Season 6, Respawn Entertainment introduced a crafting system. Materials could be found across the map via loot bins or material stations. Players were able to exchange these materials at replicator stations found in certain monuments and locations. The loot within the replicators rotated on a weekly or daily basis. Furthermore, the addition of a new energy based SMG was introduced, the Volt. The Volt had an extremely high DPS potential, but it consumed energy ammo almost like no other gun, with its low magazine size and quick reload times. Nonetheless, it was a top tier weapon in Apex, with high damage per shot and an amazingly low recoil, allowing you to hit a greater number of shots than you might expect. 4th of November 2020, Season 7 of Apex. A new map was introduced, Olympus, a floating city high above the planet Psamathe. Olympus introduced two new ways to traverse the map, the Phase Runner and the Trident, Apex Legends' first vehicle. The Trident is a squad-based 3-seater hover vehicle we can find in the outskirts of Olympus. These were made for large rotations throughout the map, especially in the early game. The Trident comes equipped with a boost feature that for a short time can increase speed and help you over obstacles. These hover vehicles are designed for rotations and not combat. If you choose to use this in combat, there are multiple options for other players to counter this. Arc Stars or Watson's Fences, for instance, can store the vehicle for a moment, giving the enemy team time to punish. The Phase Runner is an industrial-sized phase portal connecting three distinct areas of Olympus. This always-on static portal will phase players to and from specific locations. Now let's talk about Horizon, a gravitational manipulator who brought a whole new playstyle to Apex. His abilities included Gravity Lift, Spacewalk, and Black Hole, as well as the new map and the introduction to the new Apex Legend. Starting Season 7, Apex Legends became available on Steam, carrying progress from Origin. This allowed Apex to become more diverse, enticing more players into downloading the game. February 2nd, 2021, Season 8 and the current season of Apex. Season 8 introduced a new Apex legend, Fuse. His abilities included Knuckle Cluster, Grenadier, and the Motherload. All of these abilities were pretty explosive, which is perfect for an aggressive playstyle. A new rifle was introduced, correlating to the addition of the champion Fuse, the 30-30 Repeater, a level action rifle which, to be honest, seemed like an overpowered G7 Scout. It dealt 74 to 100 damage per headshot, 42 to 57 damage per body shot, and had a fire rate of 140 rounds per minute. It has a unique charge mechanic, allowing the weapon to do more damage, up to 35% more, by aiming down sights for longer without firing or having faster fire rate with lower damage per shot. Sounds pretty broken if I do say so myself. Kings Canyon also received a new map update, the main new point of interest showing the devastation of a ship crashing at the northern direction of the map. It was in this season that Apex launched its crossplay with Nintendo Switch. Over the years, Apex has grown massively over multiple platforms, enabling a more diverse set of PC, controller, and even Switch players to this action-packed free-to-play battle royale. So that's basically a general overview of the evolution of Apex. And what was your favourite season? Was it Season 1, Season 2? Let me know down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you in another evolution video.